GM, or good afternoon for some of us. Welcome to our Tech Talk podcast. Sharing a couple things up at the top of the space. Hopefully you can hear me nice, loud, and clear. We'll get started here in just a second. Going to pin a couple more things at the top. Give me just a moment. All right. Welcome to another one of our Tech Talk podcasts. This is a live discussion that I record here weekly and, sometimes lately bi-weekly here on X, where we highlight news, innovations, education, alpha, and business development in the Web3 domain technology and digital identity space. I am your host, as always, Marcus, aka When Airdrop, the founder of iHeart Domains, and we are your number one resource for unbiased Web3 and blockchain domain educational content. We've done about 125, 130 of these Tech Talk episodes and YouTube videos produced and archived over the past 2.5 or so years. If you want to see our entire podcast archive and listen to any of our prior recordings, you can do so. And you can read an easy blog overview of each episode right on our website at iHeartDomains.com. Alternatively, you can listen to prior recordings in podcast form on any major podcast player, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and iHeartRadio, easily reachable at techtalk.host. I hope I'm not going to be tongue-tied today. I feel it already coming on. Going to hop into some recent industry news. Opening news is typical. Then I'm going to jump into the main discussion because it is kind of a fiery one. First thing that I did want to announce is our website for our learning program, or our new module that we're building, our educational module for normies, for the masses to learn Web3 and digital identity. The sign up page, or the what do you call it? The the landing page for it is now live at learnweb3.xyz. That is going to be the main URL for our new Web3 and digital identity curriculum. If you're not already familiar with the Web3 or digital identity curriculum, this is a curriculum that we have created with our expertise that covers everything from, obviously digital identity, minting names in Web3, what they'll be used for, but also the basics of blockchain, NFTs, cryptocurrencies, DAOs, and everything that you'll need to be proficient in the Web3 or blockchain space. As a lot of us are coming to know, a lot of new careers are being formed, either directly in the Web3 space or that require some sort of proficiency in blockchain. There aren't many programs out there to formally learn this. So our certification program is one that we hope, helps serve that purpose in the space. So again, learnweb3.xyz. If you're currently interested in, kind of pre-signing up and getting any notifications about when we're about to go live, feel free to sign up. You'll see a spot there for you to put your name and your email address. Also, lastly, as always, Registration on our own Web3 TLDs, which would be .dgen, .xchain, and .defi wallet are now available for registration. These TLDs are owned on the Free Name platform. You will own any SLD that you purchase on these TLDs forever. That means no renewals. It is a true asset that will live in your wallet as an NFT, and you can use them to connect your wallet as well as digital identity in Web3. You can easily register any one of these domains on either one of these TLDs directly on our website at iheartdomains.com. Right there on the front homepage, you will see the option to search for a .dgen, .xchain, or a .defi wallet domain name. Again, kind of getting got to get a little tongue tied. But yeah, without further ado, gonna hop into the main discussion. So today, we're about to explore a concept so paradigm shifting that once it clicks, you'll never look at AI or blockchain the same way again. As you can see at the top, the title of this tech talk is Agentic AI and Web3 Domains. And we're going to talk about how the future is autonomous and how the future also is going to need a name. So first, what is Agentic AI? And I feel the need to break this down because, again, AI isn't something that's new to us, right? It's not new to anybody. But the concept of AI becoming kind of its own entity in the way that AI is evolving, I think may be something a lot of people haven't clicked onto. So, what is agentic AI? What is the big deal behind these two words? Well, let's start simple. Again, we all know what AI is. Most of us have some interaction with chatbots, maybe even assistants, image generators right here on Grok. But agentic AI is the next level. Agentic AI is AI that acts autonomously. That means it can set goals, it can execute tasks, it can learn from feedback, it can even coordinate with other AI agents. And soon, and even now, it can create entire products and systems really without any human intervention. Uh, this isn't Siri reading you the weather. This is an AI that says, I noticed your schedule's overwhelming, so I just rebooked all your meetings, ordered your groceries, emailed your landlord, and deployed a smart contract to automate your rent. It's AI with initiative. So as you can see, we're talking about building something that's a completely different animal again than just interacting with a chat bot or with a custom GPT. And so this takes us to the next step of why AI or agentic AI definitely needs to make definitely needs an identity. If we're talking about a world where eventually AI agents are potentially making decisions or signing contracts and even owning assets on the blockchain or deploying assets on the blockchain, well, how do we know who they are, right? How do we know how to trust them? And how are we able to track what they've created? Um, I don't know how many or what percentage of AI agents that are created or what kind of programs will eventually be deployed to like normal everyday people who just need something to update their schedule. But the way AI agents are being deployed now and the way I anticipate will continue to happen is they're being deployed on the blockchain, right? As blockchain ownable assets. And as such, they'll be assigned the blockchain identification that we've all been assigned, right? Which is our wallet address. And that is the start of their identity. So just like humans use emails, social handles, and passports, AI agents are eventually going to need a verified identity layer. And this is 100% the use case and where Web3 domains come in. Imagine something like mailbot.eth, right? Or autolawyer.ai or research.agent.x, right? These aren't human names. These will eventually become on-chain identity for agents. Again, that tongue twisting. Um, and with these, eventually, you're going to know what agent wrote a white paper, right? You're going to know or be able to tip or pay an agent via their crypto wallet. You'll be able to view an AI agent's public work history on chain, and also, of course, verify the origin of any AI generated content simply by being able to map to its identity. Um, and just to kind of help it make sense as far as some real use cases, I mean, like easily applicable things as people start coming to a space. Think about a legal agent, right? I actually own on-chain lawyers, on-chain attorneys, on-chain attorney, the plural and the singular .com. I own 0xlawyer and attorney.com, both the plural and the singulars. I own actually a lot of legal crypto related domains, all hand registers, of course. So maybe they're only grails to me, but they make perfect legal agent names. So imagine a legal agent like what is one I just deployed? I think I did deploy on-chain attorney, and I've attached an actual chatbot to it. So if you type in onchainattorney.com, it takes you to a custom GPT. This is where I'm going with that. Imagine an on-chain lawyer that uses something like that. You interact with it with your wallet. It can even draft contracts, sign smart contracts, create entire legal records, and it will be public, verifiable, and of course auditable because it is using a name that is easy to remember and easy to trace. Same thing with like journalism, creating a news site like I've had namernews.com, or for using a Web3 domain, unless I bring that one on chain, something like auto.news. It could be a GPT-based journalist that's trained on local city news. And every time it publishes an article, it's going to have a timestamp and be signed on chain. And you're going to know exactly which AI agent wrote it. And of course, it's going to have its trust factor and be its own author, right? Same thing with creative agents. Creative agents are going to create generative work on chain. Those collections are going to be minted by those agents, and collectors are going to know exactly who that artist is because that agent is going to have a name. And then going further with shopping assistants, and etc. All the different interactions, they may be able to earn affiliate commissions, they may be able to generate revenue, et cetera, et cetera. All of these things traceable on chain. Again, a wallet address is just numbers, and that's what everything coming into the space is. This is the only asset that you have beginning with, and unfortunately, it's unreadable and it's untrustworthy at face value. But a Web3 domain like .eth or .degen, which I happily own, .sol, .nft, .defi, .crypto, .anything, right? You're able to build an actual reputation behind that namespace. You're able to build recognition in that namespace. And when you build those things, now you're building a verifiable identity for that namespace and for whatever you've built in it. Again, this is DNS for AI agents. And that comes with credentials, audits, and again, being able to sign with digital signatures that have an actual name that are traceable back to who is creating it. It becomes essentially the passport for AI. I mean, like thinking into the future, imagine a few years from now, you open up like a DAO dashboard and the treasury bot that's been deployed within it. And this is crazy too, because we're going to see how this works out. A DAO that I belong to called Base DAO, literally on Sunday, we are launching an agentic AI to run the DAO. And it's crazy. So we have our own DAO, which has its own voting mechanisms based on the people who own membership tokens within it. But we also bought a whole noun. So collectively, we also vote in traditional noun auctions. And this AI agent, this bot, is going to do all these things for us and help optimize these activities. And this is super cool. But again, going back to what I was saying, imagine you open a DAO dashboard and you've got a treasury bot that's rebalanced a portfolio. You've got a content agent that's already been posting new content and different drops. You've got a customer service agent that's working behind the scenes, handling every inquiry. And all of them are tied to a single on-chain Web3 identity that you can verify because you've created your own namespace. Again, we're entering an era of agentic economies where AI agents will build businesses, they'll create projects on chain, they'll be able to execute proposals. And these things can, I mean, to some extent already happen, maybe not plug and play, but there's some pretty equipped agents out there already, and even plug and play, they're pretty powerful. And then most importantly, they'll be able to pay one another, probably in crypto. Again, seeing how this plays out, how this continues to evolve, I do anticipate that most agents will be deployed on chain. It has been long theorized by people a lot smarter than me that the currency or the economic ecosystem for AI agents will be crypto, right? This is what they will pay each other in. This is what they will interact with. And again, anything that is going to be dealing in crypto is going to get that same wallet address. anything that gets that wallet address is going to have a need for a name, and that justifies definitely the need for our space. And again, think of a future where eventually, these agents are going to have DAOs as employers, domains as IDs, wallets as banks, and on-chain resume. And you'll be able to hire, fire, and collaborate and audit them using different Web3 tools. Um, Now, I know for a lot of people hearing this, the obvious thing that you think about is the risk. As bullish as I am on agentic AI, I run across most people who want to run far, far away from it, or are afraid to deploy, kind of this. I want to say it's untested, but when it's your first time, kind of trying to wrap your head around the concept of letting something loose that can make decisions on its own on behalf of you, that's a scary thing. And I'll be honest, there are risks, right? Depending on what you deploy out there, it could potentially, not align 100% initially with what you built it to do. But that's where you can definitely modify and kind of fine tune it to your liking. Uh, but then even moving further, once AI starts to flood the space, once it becomes a norm, hopefully we don't start seeing things like deep fakes from AI, especially, using falsified or fake identities. You know, bots posting as real people. I know that you can actually deploy actual bots to Twitter Spaces that can then join as a speaker and speak. Heard a real bad example of one on our own free name Spaces. What was it, a week before last? But it's crazy because I actually saw that option pop up in the back office of one of the um, uh, tools or whatever. I forget what you call them, sandboxes that you can use to create these agentic AIs. In the back of my sandbox, it actually has an option to set something like that up, and even to clone my own voice so that it will sound like me. And this is something that, if I'm using it at this level, and again, I will certainly admit, although I am extremely technical curious, I click really fast, and I'll definitely jump in a rabbit hole or two. There are far more smarter people than me out there. There are people who are full scale, developers and understand AI tech to a degree that the normal person wouldn't. And those people, have the potential to use this in a very bad way. Um, and all of this bad, right? All of this risk, it just reinforces the need for on-chain transparency. And literally the easiest way to create on-chain transparency, it's almost like we saw it coming, but on-chain namespaces, on-chain domains, it solves that problem, right? It does that to a T. Again, it's agentic AI, Web3 domains. It's a match made in heaven. They're two ecosystems that are made for each other, two rising technologies. Agents will need reputation systems. Web3 domains can link to them. Agents may need soulbound credentials. Web3 domains can link to them. I can come up with a million different reasons for why, building a brand, building credibility behind a name will last and will create a lot of value behind you and what you deploy out there. So going back to, again, those who are seeing this from a critical standpoint, it's important that us that are building and continuously onboarding people into the space that we build responsibility. Again, agentic AI and Web3 agents or Web3 identity is like a power tool. Power tools can build homes or they can hurt people. And so it is definitely up to us to shape this space correctly. And again, show people how this can be utilized. The world is changing fast. Again, we're not just talking about smarter AI or cooler domains. We're talking about a future where potentially AI is going to have an identity and an agency. Identity is decentralized, work is autonomous, and every agent, every person, every idea has a verifiable and ownable name. With that being said, we just had a guest join our space. Uh, Definitely want to say good afternoon. Want to give you a chance to go ahead and introduce yourself, but up on the stage right now, we've got AI.now. For those who will be listening later, he is famously the new owner of agenticai.com. So definitely a domain that ties right into the narrative, of what's coming, how the space is building. But definitely would like you to say hi, and then wanted to get your thoughts as well. Obviously, you must be bullish on agentic AI with the recent purchase of the domain. But how do you feel about Web3 domains and their potential tie or use in agents as they become deployed on chain? Sorry for that long-winded question.
Hey, it's all good. Good morning, Marcus, or GM, or good night, good evening, whatever you want to call it. I just want to start off by saying thanks a bunch for being flexible on this. I know we kind of talked earlier, so I just want to say I really appreciate your flexibility on this. And I just want to say hello to iHeart Domains if there's another person behind there. But yeah, you are correct. We did acquire agenticai.com at a reasonable or fair value. We think there's a lot of upside potential in the forward-looking years. The CAGR, or the compound annual growth rate, the search traffic, the way AI agents are going. There's this new term called vertical AI agents. It's obviously, it's a little bit more specialized or focused than just like AI agents, but there's this new ish term that I've seen floating around called vertical AI agents, kind of in a specific vertical of an industry or line of business. But yeah, forward looking, I think the forward, this is just my opinion. The forward outlook of agentic AI is really positive, in my opinion, just looking at the data and the trends and the graphs and talk on X and talk on social media. I think in my honest opinion, we're just, getting started. I think eventually in the coming years, next, under 5 years, you'll be, you'll be like a car wash attendant, or you'll be like a car salesman, or you just, whatever you want to call it. And you'll have a little AI agent on your computer, managing your emails, managing your calendar, automatically accepting invites, or automatically handling tasks and emails and responses for you, and coordinating all those things. And so, I think, the other thing is with AI agents, I mean, I've mostly seen it around X, and, X is, I don't want to say nerdy, but, just in my personal experience, I've seen trends on X before they go mainstream. And so some people say X is like the hive mind of the internet, or whatever you want to call it. But in terms of Web3 and digital identities, you know, my honest opinion is a lot of things are going to be tokenized in the coming years. I don't necessarily know how soon, or how quick, or how fast, or how much, but just looking at general trends and data, in my opinion, I think a lot of things are going to be tokenized, whether it's like stocks or art. I mean, obviously, some of this stuff is already being done. There's no question, but forward looking, like how much more is going to be tokenized, and we already have like USDC and all these other things going on tokenization and RWA, real world assets. But yeah, digital. I'm not particularly caught up with the narrative, or caught up with the current state of digital identities. I kind of know what they are, but in relation to Web3 and the blockchain and tokenization, I think long term it's only going to continue growing. I just want to say thanks again for having me on, Marcus and iHeart Domains. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely, and love having you on. Also enjoyed the having the ability to chat with you almost right after you made the acquisition of the domain, and picking your brain. And also want to welcome you to the free name community as well. I've already kind of told our VIP community about you, so definitely glad to have you there. A couple things I did want to touch on, and so to kind of make this connection for you, to catch you up to speed. The theory is that most agents, at least right now, right, with the narrative that we're following now, like you made a point, um, that Twitter, kind of acts like a hive, or can sometimes break technology before it goes mainstream. It seems like that, right? And the narrative here, for the most part, is that these agents are being deployed on chain. Um, the pretty much the simple connection is that anything that's deployed somewhere needs a name, right, so that you can identify it, and more than just a Twitter name, right, but an actual verifiable name, so you can trace what it is doing as it's interacting on the blockchain. Um, agents, as I'm currently seeing and interacting, and I was going to ask you as well, if you currently built out any agents, but just some news that kind of where this space is going. And again, I see this as being like the next wave that takes over. I mean, obviously, Agentics has a use case anywhere, far beyond outside of crypto, but just within our little circle, right? Um, we're coming from a bull. We're coming into a bull run of Agentics. I mentioned last week that Solana Agent Kit has now enabled any agents that you build there. You can actually launch a pump.fun token within their platform and attach it to the agent. So already, they have an ecosystem where you can deploy agents. Agents can deploy token assets on chain. But even beyond that, Virtual's ecosystem has evolved to the point where you can literally gamble on agents. Right now, if you want to participate in basically agent IPOs, they have a whole list of agents that are about to launch tokens, and you can get into pre-sales on agent, and these are actual agentic AI agents who are bidding for you to fund their token to be launched on chain and do whatever it is that they're going to do. So even before this catches, I think mainstream, you're going to see the kind of degen economy really kick this into high gear and turn this into kind of a money farm for a little bit. And uh, again, with a lot of things being incubated within Web3, with there being kind of a natural use, right? Um, a natural tie with Agentics, an easy way for again us nerds here to turn um, digital money into real money. There is going to be a need to name them, and the best way to name these things in really, structurally is on chain. If the asset exists on chain, Web3 names exist to name those things. So hopefully that wasn't too long-winded of kind of a response to what you were saying, and also kind of an answer as to why I think the two worlds are definitely made for each other. But back to the question that I wanted to ask you: have you had a chance to build in the world of AI or agentics personally yet? Do you have any personal experience with that? And it's cool if it's a yes or if it's a no. I do have a follow-up question depending on what the answer is.
Actually, yeah, that's a good question. I was looking at this agent builder SaaS or platform last week or 2 weeks ago, actually for domain names, because I was looking for it to like automatically appraise names or automatically like do data crunching. It was very domain focused, but I ran into the problem is I with the tool or platform I picked. I kind of gave up in like an hour or so because it just seemed too complicated for me. Now, I'm not saying that goes for every agent platform or make your own agent platform, but at least the one I choose, that just with the UI and all these different connectors and steps and processes and things, it just got a little overwhelming and a little daunting for me. Now, I understand like the whole point of like if you can actually automate this agent or build this agent, like the ROI is like insane. You can have it do automatic whatever. Um, it's just with the platform I was using, the I don't want to say the UI wasn't unfriendly. It was just the whole getting it set up from A to Z was a little daunting. Because I mean, it could be my fault too, because potentially maybe what I was trying to accomplish was too complex or complicated. I mean, I'm sure it can be done with an AI agent, but I'm a brand new beginner, dabbling in AI agents, and so it's different than like, hey, I'm going to talk to Chat GPT about this prompt or about have a long-winded conversation with Chat GPT and doing some prompt engineering. So like on that front, prompt engineering or talking to AI in a elegant manner, if you will. I've gotten good at that, but when it comes to these AI agents, this was like my first time actually exploring or dabbling in one. So I actually gave up after like an hour or two. Doesn't mean I'm not going to revisit it. I think there is a strong possibility I will revisit it. I just think I need to either like just watch a YouTube video, watch a tutorial, like rather than just go in blindly on building an agent. And I think, I mean, obviously, I mean, whether you're making an agent for like domain appraisals or getting ideas or whatever you want to call it, I mean, obviously there's use case and value there, and obviously they exist for a reason. It's just, like I said, in my experience, I just found it a little daunting or overwhelming. Um, but again, that's why I just need to watch a YouTube video or tutorial, or start with a more simple idea, because that's kind of like how I got started with vibe coding. This kind of plays into it. Is when I started out at vibe coding, I was just really bad. Like my first project, it was too complicated. It was just, whatever. But eventually, as I did more vibe coding, I broke it down into smaller goals or smaller sections, and then built up my vibe coding skills. Not that I'm an expert at it or any means. It's just, when you first start doing it, you kind of don't understand the technicalities or the complexities of building a moderately complex application or website vibe coding. But yeah, that's my response.
Yeah, you actually make a great point. And, and I hate to like I feel like I'm an extremely optimistic person that every time like I speak about Web3 domains or Web3 in any way, like I always just find the greatest possible road forward. But everything does kind of inspire the fact that there's a solution, right? And once that solution happens, that adoption or mass adoption may soon come with it. Just like everything else, right? When something is extremely difficult or when it's hard to understand or build with, you have kind of only this select group of people that understand it and create with it that inspire the rest. But once that UI does exist where the rest, kind of on equal ground, aka things like we were talking about this earlier in the spaces, like how you used to feel like you had to have a technical degree to launch a token. Now you can launch one anyone and pump.fun. um, Web3 TLDs, for example. Well, who knows how to create a namespace? You can acquire a namespace directly turnkey through free name. Same thing with AI, right? We are at that point right now with AI agents. Like we're there with agentics. I think we scaled understanding or even using and implementing AI in our everyday lives. I think that happened relatively quickly. And as far as emerging technology goes, I think we usually take a little bit longer to just accept something and run with it. But it seems like we went from using AI to create filters on Instagram, um, to fully embedding it, at least in chatbot interaction to that extent. um, but again, we're still at that place right now where it feels like you may have to have a technical degree in order to deploy these. And this is why I think any real estate connected to this is so cheap right now. And so this is going back to that opportunity. It's so cheap because we know that day is coming. AI itself will eventually improve itself to the point where it'll be able to embed. You get what I'm saying. I'm not trying to spread the theories that robots will take over the world, but my point being is that, um, kind of as I explained earlier in another spaces, and again related back to Web2 domains, as far as concepts, when they're past the point of pure speculation, right? When they've gotten to a point where they're starting to establish themselves as a real industry, and AI by far, right, has exploded as an entire industry that is going to continue to grow and continue to be embedded, whether it calls itself that or not, right? And so again, when half of the world doesn't understand what's coming and you have an opportunity to own real estate or to build infrastructure in that thing before it blows, this is where millionaires and billionaires and et cetera are made. Um, so taking us back to the opportunity that exists, the obvious opportunity that exists. Building an AI, creating an AI, that's one opportunity. But then owning what every agent will eventually come to and need, as we start seeing multiple ecosystems of agents being deployed out here, is another, I believe, really easy way to position yourself for the boom that is eventually going to come when these things become as easy as being able to use a button in your Instagram to launch an agentic agent that posts and tweets and does all that stuff for you. And again, I'm making up features right now how they'll actually be deployed. I'm sure they'll have a different name, but you get my point. If you played with AI in any way, shape, or form or fashion, if you dug into any of these ecosystems, and especially if you played around in any of these agent sandboxes, you know where this is going. You know where this is being built, and we're still right at the beginning of that technology. Which
You
now
know,
brings us to Uncle Ford.
oh well, I just want to say something that's kind of funny, not in a bad way, but I have a good friend here in town, and she is, relatively tech savvy. She knows how to build a computer. She knows how to, build, do a fresh install of like Windows or Linux or operating system and reformat a computer. And she's, very technically savvy, or I shouldn't say very, but she's well equipped in the technology, like hardware technology, building computers industry. And anyways, it was really funny because I was just, she was over, a couple weeks ago, and we were just talking, and I was asking her like, have you ever heard of Grok or AI? Have you ever used AI? And at this point, AI has been around for whatever, how a few years, whatever you want to call it. And she was like, no, I haven't used AI. And granted, she's a little older than me, and just a friend, but I just found it really interesting. I guess my point is, I still think we're early to AI because, I just, this is kind of like a salt test, and to a degree is okay. So we have a relatively competent hardware tech nerdy person, but they're not really up with the times. Like they're not on X or Twitter or Facebook or Instagram or whatever. They're not really on social media or using apps, right? They're kind of old school. But I just found it interesting, kind of to your point about how we're early is, here we have this demographic or this person that I know that's never used AI. And once I got her set up with Grok and Twitter and AI, she was like, wow, this is amazing. I can just talk to Grok about practically anything and it will just walk me through. I can use Grok for searches and questions rather than going to Google, or, I can just have a conversation with it. And I'm sure, I'm not sure, but I know for a fact there's plenty of other people out there, because I asked a buddy of mine from college. I was like, hey man, you ever heard of agentic AI? And he's like, no, but he knows what AI is, and I would consider him a relatively tech savvy person too, and he's never heard of agentic AI or AI agents. And I just thought that was an interesting salt test to some degree.
Yeah, again, it's definitely one of those things that I think is just gonna happen, right? And it's gonna take a one person to deploy, or one company, right, to deploy something that just clicks with the masses, or again, like either better UI or something like that. Um, and you, again, going to another point, um, yeah, there's certainly pockets of people out there who I mean, have not interacted, or have not consciously interacted with AI. Um, the thing about AI, though, is it is extremely easy to onboard people to using it. And that, I think, is also going to play a big factor in this spreading very fast. I mean, almost anybody that you introduce this to and open up a simple chatbot and say you can ask it any stupid question, it'll give you an answer that'll make you feel like you're the smartest person in the world. I mean, that's instantaneous value. I mean, my 8-year-old daughter uses Chat GPT, of course, with monitoring and limitations, but it is an extremely useful tool that it's very easy to onboard people with. And even the people who haven't heard it, again, once it clicks, that simple concept, once it clicks, it's embedded. You're hooked for life. And that virality, that usefulness, again, it takes us out of the realm of speculation as far as whether or not AI is going to continue to be built upon, continue to be evolved, um, uh, continue to gain more onboarding, not only from individuals or people, consumers, but also large corporations who are now starting to name themselves after this, and turn the entire brands of their corporations into AI companies. Speaking of which, X is doing just that, right? X is focusing more on being an AI company than a social media company. And again, we see why, because we see where this is going. Um, Quick question before we kind of start to wrap up this thought, and don't know if you have an answer to it or not, but obviously everyone's curious. You've got agenticai.com. Are you planning on building it out? See or no? And if so, can you share what that is? But if not, if you see someone else eventually acquiring this domain, how do you see this domain, kind of existing in the space? Again, it's a pretty big name considering where we're going.
Yeah, good question. Well, I think what I fall back on is just what I mean. Let's just look at agentic AI as a industry, as a vertical, as a business, as something in those lines. Um, what I do know is according to the search data I saw, it gets worldwide approximately gets 700 to 8 the keyword agentic AI gets approximately 700 to 800,000 searches on Google worldwide relatively consistently for the last 6 months, a year, and it's growing. If you look at the graph, the keyword volume for agentic AI is growing in an uptrend, which tells me, and the thing is that the 800,000 searches, that's a lot, but that's a fraction of the world population with what, 7, 8, 9 billion people? That's a small fraction. But what I'm looking at is just the data, the trends, the charts, the graphs. What direction is it going? Future wise, and the search volume is on a upslope. I was doing some market research about agentic AI with a cumulative cumulative annual growth rate, or CAGR or CAGR, and market.us put it at about 40% or so. Obviously, that's just an estimate, and estimates are known to be wrong. There's a margin of error, but one from the reports I saw, it was maybe whatever, 30%, 40% cumulative annual growth rate. Point being, I was just looking at I wasn't even looking at comparable sales. I wasn't looking at I think that's the biggest thing I can say is I was not looking at comparable sales, because people buy domains for all sorts of reasons. There's end users, there's other investors, there's wholesale, other speculators, whatever you want to call it. You might, like for example, physicalai.com sold for $50,000 like within the last 2 years, and I'm not going to go into physical AI, but if you just Google it, NVIDIA has a blog article about it. Point being is for this acquisition, I was looking at non-comparable sales data. Like I was also looking at investments made in the space. Where is the industry going? How is the industry going to evolve? A lot of my questions and thinking into this acquisition were I don't want to say forward thinking, but looking into the future. Not like this year, not next year, but maybe 2+ years kind of thing. And everything seemed to be positive. I mean, I'm sure there's a bear case to be made. The grass isn't always greener, and I've been known to be wrong. But at least for this acquisition, it's just I was like, okay, I feel like the risk to reward is there. But to answer your question directly, um, what I'm gonna do with it, I just got it. It's just like, and I've been traveling and I've been doing all these things lately, so you know, kind of just, we'll see. But I think what I will say is, if you want to be called, I mean, it's not like this needs to be stated, but I guess the way I perceive it is if you want to be the agentic AI company, because agentic AI is encompassing of AI agents and anything AI automation, and, agentic AI is like the categorical umbrella definition term, if you want to put it that way. So, if you want to be called the agentic AI company, or want to do it, you would have the .com is just how I perceive it. And like I said, I could be wrong, but that's just how I kind of perceive it. But also, I think it's if let's say that never happens and I never find a buyer, I think it's a really strong and great name. And if I don't find a buyer, or if I don't want to sell it, whatever. The point being is I do have the somewhat of the skills to build something out on it. Maybe a marketplace, maybe a blog, maybe an informational website, or I could just go to Chat GPT or Grok for ideas, Um, so we'll see what happens, but I think it's a strong, powerful name, and I'm sure the thing is people like to talk about end users, and an end user may have a totally different idea with it than I may ever envision or think of. Sure, it kind of not that it needs to stay in its lane, but who knows what you could build on it? You could build a marketplace, you could do X, you could use it as a redirect. It's just you know, there, I guess people, when they look at domains, they have different perceptions or different ways of looking at what they want to do with a domain. Um, you could do an agentic AI newsletter. You want to start an agentic AI newsletter and keep, thousands of people updated on a weekly or daily basis. You could do something like that. But I hope that gives you somewhat of a direct answer to your question.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for answering. And Like again, looking forward to seeing what's built out with it. Again, very powerful name. It encompasses an entire category. So, in one way or another, it's going to serve as either a great pillar of information or a way to discover, some agentic agents. One thing is also for sure too, and I think I saw this comment on one of your posts or something, or about you earlier, that it seems like ever since you bought the name, uh, every single thing that's been showing up in my feed since then has been locking in the fact that it was a great buy. Once again, the narrative of the space of the crypto bubble is definitely aligned with agentic AI. We're going to start seeing. We're at the very beginning of it. Right now, I can name like 3 or 4 agents maybe that exist on X. It will soon be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of them. And then that's just the beginning. It will spread beyond that again to the normal user once the UI catches up and we can start onboarding the masses. And this will be not only a way to onboard people into AI, but this will also be a way to onboard these same people into Web3. With that being said, and yeah, I want to give you a chance if you have any thoughts you want to end with. Once again, thank you for taking the time out of your evening to join us on the space. I happily moved the space at this time because I definitely wanted your feedback. Again, extremely valuable feedback, and I know a lot of people are not only following, what you're doing with the domain, but also following your journey. You're putting out and sharing some very, solid data and information. Again, aligned with the narrative of agentic AI. And for any of us who are in the Web3 domain ecosystem, again, if you're looking for, a perfect use case, the use case, the Grail use case that we didn't even know would exist 3 or 4 years ago when a lot of us first started playing with these domain names. I mean, God gave it to us, gave us AI, He gave us agents. And so you know what to do. You got to name them. But yeah, with that being said, anything that you want to end with before we close up, sir?
No. I just want to say thanks again for the opportunity to talk. And I know we met last week or a couple weeks ago or so, and it's been a pleasure talking with you and getting to know you. And you kind of, free name got me my first TLD. I don't want to. It's not that I don't want to reveal it, but I will reveal it at some point. You obviously know, but. I am excited to get my feet wet into Web3 with a TLD. And it kind of, the way I look at it is kind of like have a stake in Web3, just a little stake, a little dabbling, a little whatever you want to call it. And like I said, we met within the last couple of weeks, and I really appreciate your time and you taking the time out of your day and your schedule to educate me on Web3. And we talked a lot about various things, and so I really appreciate that. Closing notes though. I think what I like the most about domains is it's a common shared interest, and what I correlate it to is kind of like stamp collecting. Like there's a ton of people into cars. There's a ton of people into crypto. There's a ton of people into all these hobbies, or sports or football or what hockey, whatever you want to call it. But I kind of correlate domains, and I don't want to say Web3 is like, oh, that's weird niche. I don't want to say that at all. I guess what I'm trying to say is, it's kind of like, okay, if a stamp collector meets another stamp collector, they're like, oh yeah, it's cool. Let's talk about stamps, and I feel that way. I resonate with I take that and resonate that a lot with domain investors and other domain people. Is like, hey, you want to bond and just talk over domains, whether it's Web2 or Web3. You want to talk SLDs, TLDs taken, TLDs developed, all these metrics, geo domains, exact match, brandables, it's just, I guess what I'm trying to say is, between you and a handful of other people I've been able to meet through X, I've been able to make some, what I would call friends or domain buddies or buddies, and I just think that's the power of like I don't want to say a niche hobby because there's a lot of people in it, but just like a specialized interest, may be a better way to put it. Um, and so I don't mean any of that negatively. I mean all that positively. And so I'm very, between meeting you and a lot of other people in the domain space, there's a lot of cool and great people. And, what I like is it's global. I've talked to people in India, Bangladesh, here in the United States, all across the world. And I just think it's cool to just see, hey, let's just talk about one thing and then share ideas and tips and tricks and just discuss about this, and then maybe we'll sprinkle in some personal stuff, and get to know each other a little bit and through the internet. And I think that's really cool. But that's really all I have to end on.
No, you're absolutely right, and it is crazy, like especially in traditional domain space, how big that space is, how the transactions that have been made over the past 20 or 30 years in domains, and the fact that it's really just like a few people, right? It's really not that big of a group. Um, and that's the beautiful thing about it, right? That small groups of visionaries can make a really, really big difference that impacts the whole world and they don't even know it. Uh, and so again, back on my super positiveness, we are that group, right? We're that group of thinkers and innovators here in this bubble called Web3 that will create a concept that the world will accept because it's awesome and it'll work for them.
Yeah,
Go for it. Though.
I'm just gonna say thanks again. I'm gonna drop to listening. So thanks for giving me the floor, and I'm just gonna drop to listening. Thanks again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you once again for coming on as a guest. And again, we're about to wrap up the space. Just wrapping up with these thoughts. Agents in AI or AI agents on the blockchain, Web3 domains again are two opportunities, two emerging industries, two emerging technologies that there is a bunch of both investment opportunity in, as well as participation opportunity. And we are at a crossroads or something. But again, us as this small group just like the group I just referenced in DNS, that has the ability to create really pretty big ecosystem, financial ecosystem. We are the group that is doing that here. So without further ado, or with, with nothing else to be said, once again, thank you guys for attending this Tech Talk. Um, Try to do this every week. I've been doing this again for the past 2.5, 3 years. If you want to listen to any of the previous episodes, you can find them easily on iHeartDomains.com or on techtalk.host. But yeah, until next time, focus on your mission and not your condition. Happy domaining. And yeah, get out there building AI eventually. It's going to be incorporated in the way that you do business, the way you think, and the way you operate your day. So it's better to get ahead of the building curve already. But again, thank you for attending another Tech Talk. See you guys next week.